The air was thin and cold. It smelled of smoke and burned metal. Kyle Vance dragged his body across the floor. His leg was a mess of pain. Each movement sent a sharp signal to his brain. He ignored it. Around him, the ship Ares was a tomb. The lights were dead. Only the red emergency strips cast a glow. They showed him the shapes of his crew. They were frozen where they fell. Some were still strapped into their chairs. Their faces were pale and still. He did not let himself look for long. His breath was loud in the silence. The only other sound was the low groan of the dying ship. He reached a broken console. Sparks jumped from an open panel. He pulled himself up. His fingers, slick with blood, tapped the screen. It flickered to life. The combat log loaded. He saw it then. The 7th Fleet, bright icons on the dark map. They had been strong. They had been ready. Then new contacts. Fast. Too fast. They moved like ghosts, slipping through the fleet's defenses. He watched the replay. The enemy ships were dark and sharp. They did not fire bright lasers. They fired pulses of black energy. Where the pulses hit, Terran ships simply came apart. Hulls cracked open like eggs. Shields did nothing. They just vanished. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. Ship after ship turned into silent wreckage. The Ares took a hit to the engines. Power failed. Life support failed. The screams on the internal comms were cut short by the vacuum. Single message played on a loop from the enemy. A calm human voice. It held no anger, no pride. It was just a fact. The question was asked. This is the answer. Vance's jaw tightened. He had to tell someone. He had to send a warning. Rerouted the little power he had to the comms array. He attached the data packet. It held the energy signature of the enemy weapons. It was the only clue. He hit the transmit button. The console blinked. Sending a deep shudder ran through the Ares. A secondary explosion, somewhere deep in the ship. The floor jumped under him. He held onto the console. He watched the transmission bar fill. Complete. He slumped back. The last of his energy gone. He was ready to close his eyes, to join the others. Then, a soft chime. An incoming message. His heart jumped. Rescue signal. Hope. He looked at the screen. It was from High Command. A direct, secure line. It was not a rescue order. The words were clear and final. Priority Omega. Scuttle all records. Initiate cerebral scrub protocol. The Ares never existed. Kyle Vance stared. The cold of the metal floor seeped into his bones. It was a different kind of cold. It was the cold of betrayal. They were not coming for him. They were erasing him. He was not a hero to be saved. It was a problem to be deleted. The red light of the console reflected in his wide, unblinking eyes. The life pod was a metal coffin. It drifted in the silent dark. Kyle Vance floated inside. The air was stale. He had run out of water 2 days ago. His leg was a dull, constant ache. He watched the stars through the small viewport. They did not move. He was waiting to die. A sharp clang echoed through the pod. Vance jerked awake. His heart hammered against his ribs. Another clang, then a grinding sound. Metal on metal. A light flashed outside the viewport. It was another ship. A grapple arm locked onto his pod. He was pulled toward a larger vessel. It was old in patchwork. A scavenger ship. The name Odyssey was painted roughly on its hull. The pod hatch hissed open. Cold, recycled air washed over him. A woman stood there. She had short, dark hair and wore a stained jumpsuit. She held a welding torch like a weapon. Her eyes were sharp and careful. Name and rank, she said. Her voice was flat. Vance, Lieutenant Terran, 7th Fleet. The woman Lena Petrova lowered the torch. The 7th is gone. Wiped out. Command says it was a training accident. Vance tried to sit up. It was no accident. Petrova looked at him for a long moment. Then she helped him out of the pod. Her grip was strong. She led him into the Odyssey. The ship was a mess of wires and spare parts. It smelled of oil and old food. She gave him water and a nutrient bar. He ate slowly. He told her about the battle, the dark ships, the message. Petrova listened. She did not interrupt. When he finished, she turned to a jury-rigged computer console. That data packet you sent. You still have it? He nodded. He gave her the access codes from his dog tags. She worked for hours. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Lines of code filled the screen. She was breaking military encryptions like they were nothing. "They are not new," she finally said. Her voice was quiet. "They are old, very old." She pulled up files, old schematics, historical records that were meant to be deleted. She showed him a symbol, a stark angular bird. It was the same symbol he had seen on the enemy ships. "They call themselves the Ascendancy," Petrova said. "They were part of us, a colony that cut itself off centuries ago. They believed they were better, the next step for humanity. The Republic fought them once. It was a small war, no one remembers." Vance stared at the symbol. It was a piece of a puzzle he never knew existed. "Why now?" he asked. "Why come back now?" Petrova opened another file. It was a brief report on the outcome of that long-forgotten war. The Ascendancy had lost. They were forced to disarm, to retreat to a single star system. She looked at him, her face hard in the screen's blue light. "They did not come back for conquest, Vance. They came back for revenge. And we have no idea how to fight them because we forgot they ever existed." The Odyssey dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder. Ahead was a lone space station, a rusty canister spinning in the void. This was Outpost 77, the end of the line. Vance and Petrova stood in the airlock. A green light blinked. The door slid open. An old man waited for them. He wore a faded admiral's uniform. His name was Frank Corrigan. His eyes were the color of cold steel. "You're a ghost, Lieutenant," Corrigan said, his voice a low rumble. "And you brought a ghost story." He led them into a command center. Screens showed star maps. One sector was a blot of static, the place where the 7th Fleet died. Petrova showed him the data, the Ascendancy symbol, the old war records. Corrigan did not look surprised. He nodded slowly. "I was an ensign on the ship that forced their surrender. We thought we had boxed them in. We're fools." He turned to a large screen. He pulled up a new set of files. They were his own. Decades of secret watch logs. "They never stopped," Corrigan said. "They just got smarter. Their ships are linked. Single mind. That is their power. They fight as one. No arguments. No fear." He pointed to a star chart. A nebula glowed, a cloud of purple and green. "That is their command nexus, the brain. If we can hit it, we can break their network. It is the only way." Vance felt a flicker of hope. A plan. A target. Corrigan sent the call. He used old codes. Codes High Command had forgotten. He called in every favor, every ship still loyal to the old guard. The response was slow, but it came. A fleet began to gather near the nebula. Not as grand as the 7th, but it was all they had. Weeks passed. The fleet grew. Corrigan worked day and night. He was a man brought back to life, and stood beside him, learning. Petrova worked on the ships, making their systems talk to each other, building a crude version of the unity the enemy had mastered. The day came. The Terran fleet jumped into the nebula. The gas clouds swirled around them, hiding their numbers. They moved toward the coordinates of the enemy nexus. Silence. Then the scanners lit up. 1 enemy contact. Then 10. Then 100. They emerged from the gas like sharks. They had been waiting. "It is a trap," Vance said, his blood going cold. The enemy fleet moved into a perfect sphere around them. There was no way out. Comes erupted into panic as jamming signals hit them. They were deaf and blind. On the main screen, a private channel opened. A face appeared. It was the enemy commander. The voice was calm, familiar. "You should have stayed forgotten, old man." It was Petrova's voice. The screen shifted to a view from the Odyssey's cockpit. Petrova looked back at them, her expression empty, and her ship turned its weapons on Corrigan's flagship. The last thing Vance saw was the Admiral's shocked face before a blast of white light filled the screen. The bridge of Corrigan's ship shook. Alarms screamed. The main screen was a wall of static where the Admiral's face had been. His ship was gone, just like that. Vance stood frozen. The trap was perfect. Petrova's betrayal was the final lock. Around him, the Terran fleet was coming apart. Ships exploded in silent flashes. The enemy moved without error. They were a machine, and the Terrans were just scrap metal in its gears. He stumbled to the command chair. The crew looked to him. Their faces were pale. They were waiting to die. Then he heard Corrigan's voice in his head. Not a memory, but a lesson. Their strength is their unity. It is also their weakness. A perfect system cannot handle chaos. Chaos. Vance grabbed the fleet-wide com. His voice was rough. He did not give a complex order. He gave a simple one. All ships. Ram the enemy command vessel. Aim for the core. Do not stop. For a second, there was only the sound of battle. Then the acknowledgments started to come in. A damaged cruiser, its engines on fire, was the first. It turned its broken hull toward the largest Ascendancy ship. It pushed forward. It was not a fast attack. It was a slow, determined suicide. Another ship followed, a small frigate, then a destroyer. They were not fighting to win. They were fighting to break the pattern. The Ascendancy fleet reacted. Their perfect formation wavered. For the first time, their movements were not synchronized. A few ships broke rank to avoid the rams. Others held their position. The machine was faltering. Vance looked at his own ship, the Resolute. It was badly damaged. Life support was failing. He turned to the helmsman, set a course for their command ship. Maximum thrust. The helmsman nodded. His hands were steady on the controls. The Resolute turned, a wounded beast, charging one last time. The enemy ship grew larger on the screen. Its dark hull filled the view. Vance held onto the console. He could feel the ship vibrate as it accelerated. This was it. His personal com unit chimed, an urgent private signal. He almost ignored it. But he opened the channel. It was Petrova. Her face was on the small screen, but her calm was gone. Her eyes were wide. Her voice was tight with something he had never heard from her before. Panic. "You are breaking them," she screamed. The sound was raw. "Your chaos. It is a virus in the network. It cannot process it. They do not understand. You have to stop." Vance looked from her frantic face to the main screen. The enemy command ship was right in front of them. He could see the details of its hull. He spoke into the com, his voice quiet and final. "I know." He closed the channel. He looked at the helmsman. "Brace for impact." The impact was a world-ending sound. Metal screamed as the Resolute buried its nose deep into the enemy command ship. The force threw Vance to the floor. Lights flickered and died. Emergency strips cast a bloody glow. He got up. His body ached. The bridge was a wreck. Most of the crew were dead. The few who were left looked at him. Their eyes held a grim understanding. The fight was not over. It was just closer now. "Borders with me," Vance said. His voice was a rasp. He picked up a rifle from a dead Marine. They moved into the breach. The connection point was a mess of torn metal. One moment he was on his ship, the next he was inside the enemy vessel. The air was different. Sterile, cold. The corridors were smooth and white. There were no wires, no pipes. It was silent. It felt empty, but he knew it was not. They moved carefully. Their boots echoed. They passed rooms with rows of people. They sat in chairs, connected to the ship by wires. Their eyes were open, but they saw nothing. They were part of the machine. They did not even look at the soldiers. Gunfire erupted ahead. An energy bolt hit the wall beside Vance. It left a black mark. His team fired back. Figures in gray uniforms fell. They fought with perfect, synchronized movements, but they were few. The chaos of the ramming had hurt them. Vance pushed forward. He knew where to go. Corrigan's data had shown the way to the heart. The Nexus. He reached a large door. It was sealed. Place explosives on the hinges. The blast was loud in the quiet hall. The door fell inward. The room beyond was vast and dark. In the center was a single glowing core. It pulsed with a soft light. And standing before it was Petrova. She held a weapon, but it was pointed at the floor. Her face was tired. She looked from the core to Vance. "You do not just win wars," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "You erase your enemies. You make sure no one even remembers their name. Is that your answer?" Vance did not raise his rifle at her. He raised it at the core. The brain of the Ascendancy, the source of their perfect unity. He remembered the message from the dead ship. He remembered the silent, frozen bodies of his crew. "The question was asked," Vance said. He pulled the trigger. The rifle fired. The energy bolt hit the core. A crack appeared. Light, blinding and white, poured out. The core began to break apart. Petrova did not try to stop him. She just watched. The light from the cracking core filled her eyes. The ship around them shuddered. A deep groan ran through the metal. The light from the core began to fade. The hum of the ship's systems died away, replaced by an absolute silence. On the main screen, the view of the battle outside flickered. The enemy ships, once moving as one, now drifted. Some turned and fired on each other. Others simply went dark. The perfect machine was breaking itself apart. Vance stood in the silence. The fight was over. It won. Then he looked at Petrova. She was staring at the dead core. A single tear traced a line down her cheek. It was not a tear of sadness. It was a tear of understanding. She looked at him, her face pale in the dying light. "They are gone," she said. "But so are we." He knew what she meant. It saved the Republic. But they had also learned its deepest secret. They knew about the forgotten war. They knew about the betrayal.
Oh.
They knew that High Command would rather erase its own people than face the truth. They were heroes, and they were a liability. The victory felt hollow. It felt like a beginning, not an end. The real enemy was not the ascendancy. The real enemy was the silence that came after.